Hello, this is Joseph with Next Gen Manual Therapeutics, and I wanted to talk a little bit today about top down and bottom up thinking and approaches, and essentially the way of thinking about those things, bottom up and top down. Bottom up, I think, is our basic somatic perspective, how we feel things, how we perceive things with our senses, uh, tactically or somatically, in our felt sense, and what has now become popular to call interoception. Interoception, just some short years ago was really one's ability to track, I'm hungry, I need to go to the bathroom, these kinds of things. Now it's really about felt sense, which is more accurate and really the guy that did focusing, his name evades me at just this moment, but he was a philosopher and he did focusing. It's trying to come down the name, but he coined that term as felt sense, as a way of feeling and noticing what we're feeling. It's a great term, and he wrote about it a lot. Uh, it became, we talk about perception, conception, and uh, then now we want to have interoception as its own world, and that's fine. But really, if you look at the materials, you'll see that that's a rather new generalization of the term interoception. So I think it's important to recognize where these terms come from, because it helps have less confusion about them. To me, it's more about felt sense. That felt sense, interoception, either one, both of them are going to be more of a bottom up experience. Now, even with ourselves, and say something like a trauma response or something like this, we approach ourselves sometimes with this top up, bottom up, top down perspective. So we say, well, I get so anxious, or I get so aggravated when such and such happens, or with anything. I get so aggravated with the smallest thing. And I know it's all about the time that I was, traumatized in some way, or even multiple times. And we link that up, and then we stand aside and go, I know that about myself. I know that this is what happened, when it happened, who did what, how I felt about it. I've talked about it 50 times. That's a top-down approach. So the somaticists and body-centered therapists are quick to go, see, we need a bottom-up approach. We need to notice how the body is responding, how we feel in the body, to unhook that response. And frankly, I agree, that's exactly true. And it often moves up. You can see that same way, or that same example playing out with a therapist. If the therapist can't help the patient get into a felt sense or feeling sense, or how do they feel about a certain thing, it's very difficult for the person to cognitively think about the problem and release attention, if you will, that is more stuck in the automatic, autonomic components. That's why the vagus nerve is trending now. It's like it's the only, you would think it was the only nerve. It's not even the only cranial nerve. It's important, as plenty of folks will tell you. The vagus nerve is very important, but it's not our own. It's not consciousness. Sure, there's a type of consciousness that comes along with the vagus nerve, but And I would say that that type of consciousness is best related to as bottom up. How am I feeling? It's back to that digest and rest and digest, which was the old way of talking about parasympathetic, which is what the vagus is. Uh, but now we know there's other ways, right? So that with the whole polyvagal theory, if you're interested in that, what essentially Stephen Porges said was that there's an anterior and posterior aspect to the vagus nuclei, and basically, if it's in the anterior, it's more about relating socially. So how we're being perceived, how we put ourselves out there, how, we're interrelating to one another, tied in with a lot of our other facial things like facial nerve, trigeminal nerve. They don't really go in and talk about that, but clearly that's right off the brain stem too, and how that ends up affecting how we somaticize via our parasympathetics, and in this case, our vagus nerve. So the information kind of comes from the front into the back and then down into the body. This is the a synopsis of the polyvagal perspective, which I think is very useful. Top down, though, it keeps us moving forward, right? There's a lot of folks that would like to just stay, misplace their primal self with, the origin of, say, spirit or the origin of spirituality. Well, no, actually, if we trace that back, you can see that really that's more, the instinctual self. It's not that it's not spiritual, it's the instinctual self, the primal self. That's the part that's protecting itself in bottom up philosophies. That's the self-protective, self-maintaining aspect. And it's very, if you want to use the word primitive or old in the body sense of old, kind of phylogenetically, it goes, we don't, every life form will attempt to protect itself and continue its movement forward in time. So, in much the same way, that's really where our primary or bottom-up perspectives are coming from. So we can get more into them and talk about them more because we have that capacity. And as we move into talking about them, then we have a way to look upon them. And I think of it as the bottom up is kind of in the forest. It's in the trees. Top down, you can look down and say, look, I traveled all through those trails down below. Remember that little patch there? That's where we rested an hour ago. I can see that same spot down there, down the hill. That's where we had our lunch and took a drink of water or whatever. You can look back and see where you've been. That perspective is top down. And that can be what a talk therapist will often do is they will use top down's often kind of metacognitive if we use it with ourselves. And we can think about something and then we can think about our thinking about something. How do I, and they will often think about what you're saying or think about how to think about what you're thinking about. That sounds like a puzzle, but well, the fault in the way you're thinking about this is, now they might not say it that way, or so another pattern to entertain in your thinking is, and I think these are useful strategies if the person is ready to hear that, meaning they're no longer anchored somatically. So those are just, I'm looking down at the clock here. It's like, what am I, 9 minutes into this? And I really feel like I've only talked about bottom up. Top down really does give us the management piece, give us the perspective, gives us the, just what I'm even doing now, attempting to talk about these things is a much more of a top-down perspective, trying to encapsulate these ideas so it's a very useful thing to uh, to pass along information and such, that so top down has a ton of uses.